You know, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that I'm not as sprightly as I once was. It takes me longer to recover after a night out, I forget people's names with worrying ease, and I now make fun, involuntary noises whenever I sit or stand. The realization is setting in that my body has stopped growing and perfecting itself, and is now in a state of decline, one that will ultimately lead to my inevitable death. And all this makes me think, oh god, I don't want to die, please god, take me out, that's not me, I'm not ready. But then I think a bit more and I realize it's fine, because I live in the 21st century, where death, like all other ailments, will soon be a thing of the past. And if not, I can always just get a piercing and move to Ibiza and pretend that none of this is happening. But just how feasible is immortality in reality? And can I cancel my plans for a midlife crisis? The pursuit of everlasting life is by no means a new idea. Rather unsurprisingly, we humans have been afraid of our own mortality for as long as we've been aware of it. The idea crops up in ancient mythology all across the world, from the peaches of immortality in China to the legendary fountain of youth first mentioned by Herodotus in the 5th century BC. The idea of an elixir of life is even brought up in the Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient poem from Mesopotamia regarded as the earliest surviving notable piece of literature. It's clear then that even early humans were petrified of kicking the bucket. But it wasn't all just myths and legends. Ancient humans actually did try their hand at creating eternal youth. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Attempts can be traced back to the history of alchemy, a kind of speculative predecessor to chemistry. For thousands of years, alchemists had been trying to create the holy grail of the scientific world, the Philosopher's Stone. This was a mythical substance that could turn base metals like lead and copper into shiny ones like gold and silver. Oh, and it could also cure all ailments and make you immortal, which kind of seemed like an afterthought really. If there's one thing early humans liked more than not dying, it was loads of money. Good thing we're not like that nowadays, eh? A notable figure in the alchemy game was Nicolas Flamel, a 14th century French scribe who, according to texts written in the 17th century, may have uncovered the secrets of how to make the Philosopher's Stone. It's true that he was a wealthy man and he was known to dabble in alchemy, but sadly there's no other evidence that this is true. And also he died in 1418. Here's his tombstone in Paris, and rather than turning things into gold, he made his money the old-fashioned way, by marrying into wealth. He was more of a gold digger really. So historical attempts at everlasting life clearly weren't successful, but technology has advanced exponentially since the time of Flamel. So could we experience immortality sometime in the near future? You know, preferably still in my lifetime. It may seem like it would take centuries for science to reach this point, given there are still countless diseases that remain incurable, as well as viruses that still need to piss right off. But there is a theory you may have already heard of, which, if it's accurate, would mean an explosion of scientific and technological understanding could occur in our lifetimes. The singularity. The technological singularity was a theory put forward by John von Neumann, a Hungarian-American mathematician who was seen by many as the best mathematician of his time, and those same people never invited him to their birthday parties. Neumann noted the consistent acceleration of technological progress and hypothesized that there would come a time in the future when human affairs as we know them could not continue. When plotted on a graph, the rate of advancement in many fields of technology is not constant, but exponential, rapidly heading towards a state of continued perpetual growth. This is the singularity. In real terms, this could take the form of an artificial intelligence being made that is smarter than the people who created it. It could then create an even smarter AI, creating a self-sustaining loop of technological advancement and innovation. This AI would be so smart, it might even be able to host a podcast under the guise of being a human being. A poll of AI researchers carried out in 2012 by philosopher Nick Bostrom found that there is about a 50-50 chance that this point could be reached by 2050, which could well be within our lifetimes. You know, assuming that there's no other global disasters that take us down before then, which I'm sure there won't be. And we can't talk about all this without at least mentioning Ray Kurzweil, an American inventor and futurist. In his book, The Singularity is Near, he predicts that advances in genetics, nanotechnology, and robotics will usher in the beginning of the singularity, which he claims will happen by 2045. But what would human immortality actually look like? Will we live in a cyberpunk-like future with garish hairstyles and cybernetically enhanced penises? Or will we do away with our fleshy pods altogether and transcend to the digital world, free to roam and probably still just watch YouTube all day? Perhaps the first thing we imagine when thinking of human immortality is literally the idea of replacing 40 damaged body parts with cybernetic enhancements, otherwise known as robot bits. This may not be as futuristic as it sounds, as, believe it or not, there are cyborgs walking around as we speak. In fact, any organism that has integrated technology which restores or enhances their abilities are seen by some as cyborgs. So this would include anyone with a pacemaker, a hip replacement, or a hearing aid, for example. But I'm guessing a video game centered around OAPs receiving their prescription contact lenses would be unlikely to sell 13 million copies, so when will cyber immortality become reality? In 2011, Russian billionaire and supervillain in the making, Dmitry Itskov, founded the 2045 Initiative. This is a non-profit organization designed to fully integrate man and machine by the year, you guessed it, 2045. They would do this by uploading our consciousness to artificial brains, which could then be placed inside robots, projected as holograms, or live in a digital universe blissfully unaware of the impending climate apocalypse. To achieve digital immortality in this way, the team at the 2045 Initiative are looking at ways to accurately map every neuron and every molecule in the brain. This is no easy feat. The human brain has roughly 86 billion neurons, almost as many stars there are in the Milky Way. Recently, scientists at the Allen Institute for Brain Science in Seattle released a 3D map of a piece of mouse brain about the size of a grain of sand. Just this alone was roughly 120,000 neurons and a billion connections. It also, rather worryingly, required 2 petabytes of storage, or 2 million gigabytes, which is nearly as large as that secret folder you have hidden on your desktop. This monumental size makes some researchers question the logistical possibility of ever mapping a full human brain. There's also another deeply concerning problem with this approach that cuts to the very heart of what makes us, us. Let's play out a hypothetical. Old man Alex wants to live forever in a digital fantasy world, so I go to get my brain uploaded. They create the perfect digital version of me. All my memories are intact, I still love the same things, and I'm still bitterly disappointed at the end of Game of Thrones. But then I wake up. My consciousness is still in my old man suit. It hasn't magically transferred from my body to the computer. They've just made a digital copy of me who's now out flying around like he's Neo in the Matrix. And because I'm bitter and resentful, naturally, I pull the plug. Assuming we can't transfer our consciousness to an artificial brain via a machine or the tree from Avatar, we'll probably need to find a way to make our current fleshy meat sacks immortal instead. Lots of research is currently underway in the field of artificial organs, although the ones currently available are only really used to bridge the gap until a biological replacement can be found. There's also the same issue as before. If we assume that our consciousness is solely linked to our brain, and that is a big assumption, then like other organs, it too will begin to break down and need replacing. But if we do that, will it still be us? Perhaps a more gradual process would work. Replace our brain slowly over time with artificial neurons, and hope we don't go all Terminator-y in the process. This could be achieved with future developments in nanotechnology. Programmable computers the size of cells that could take on the role of any and all bodily functions, without the downsides of, dying. But this would bring up other issues of human identity as well. Much like the parable of Theseus's ship, if we continually repair and replace parts of ourselves until there's nothing original left, would we still be the same individual? These are big questions philosophers have been asking for thousands of years, and somehow I doubt that myself and my very expensive media degree are going to be able to tackle it today. If we wanted to avoid countless brain surgeries and existential crises, maybe we should look to a more biological solution to fix our tendency of dying. They say the one thing money can't buy is more time, but that hasn't stopped the billionaires from trying. As well as Dmitry Itzkov, Peter Thiel, Yuri Milner, and humble purveyor of books Jeffrey Bezos have all been investing in technologies and startups designed to give them an extra few years with their yachts and space penises. One idea that sounds like something straight out of a horror movie is transfusing young people's blood into the elderly. This isn't hypothetical. Much like stories of rich countesses and vampires bathing in the blood of the young, billionaires like Peter Thiel are apparently very interested in this form of treatment. One 2013 study found that some aging symptoms could be reversed in older mice when they received the blood of younger ones. However, there's currently limited evidence to suggest this works in humans. Still, that hasn't stopped San Francisco-based startup Ambrosia from selling young blood to billionaires for $8,000 per litre. Lovely! Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos has recently been investing in Altos Labs, a tech startup company looking at ways to reverse the aging process. One particular area they're focused on is called reprogramming. They inject cells with special proteins that revert them back to their original stem cell state, and make them readapt to the skin, giving it a more youthful appearance. Whether this will actually extend the human lifespan is still unknown. Either way, this research is still all in its very early stages, and it's likely going to be some time before it's tested on humans. Becoming immortal is, to put it mildly, difficult. Humans have been trying for thousands of years, and yet we still can't outrun the Grim Reaper. And not to end on too much of a downer, but even if humans did find a biological or technological solution to death, who's to say we'll even have access to it at all? With the world's billionaires frantically throwing money at the problem, it's safe to assume that this would be a luxury of the ultra-rich. And if the average person were granted immortality, then we as a society would have to ask some even more uncomfortable questions. How do we tackle overpopulation? How do young people get jobs when the old never stop working? Would we even need to still work? And if we had endless days ahead of us, wouldn't that take away a big part of what makes life special? But perhaps by this time in the future, we'll be mature enough as a species to be able to answer these questions and more. And perhaps knowing we'll be stuck on this rock together forever, we'll even start taking better care of it, as well as each other. But somehow I doubt it. Thanks for making it through to the end of the video, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to make one of these. And if you're new to the channel and you missed some of those inside jokes littered throughout the video, then why not check out our podcast and see what you're missing out on? Should be a link on screen somewhere. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.